one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Let's go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to 9/11. September 11th, 2019. We have a fuck of a lot of shit to talk about today, and we're not going to talk about 9/11, i.e. September 11th, 2001, at all. So rest assured, jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. That's all I'm going to say. That's all we're going to say on that topic, except to talk about the fact of we know that this is one of their favorite, their favorite dates to play fucking games on that other level, on that not necessarily this 3D level. And shit today has been insane. I've been sitting here with the Unfuckers. We've been talking about the technology glitches. My computer was doing shit today. My computer has never done before. I was trying to have a conversation, going through website stuff with a friend of mine, and my internet was so bad. My computer was glitching so badly. I was just like, what the hell? And then I went, oh, look at the date. Of course, it's 9/11. No, I guess I should also. Hi guys, but you can hear me a little clearer now. While we're having this conversation, my friend just drops off of Zoom. Boom, like that. And I sent him a message on Messenger going, hey, dude, like I lost you, but I'm still here. And he was like, my computer died. I said, died. Like black screen of death, dead. And he's like, I'm going to do like a hard boot, like pull the battery pack out of the laptop, the whole bit, and hope that I can get it going. But I can't do anything. Like it's completely dead. I've talked to multiple people now who are like, John right now, and for everyone out on the Twitch live stream, John's trying his absolute best to keep us online in the stream, but his internet is the best internet in his area of Canada, and yet apparently it's failing spectacularly today as well. So technical glitches. A lot of people today talking about Facebook wasn't working. They couldn't get certain programs the computers weren't working. One friend of mine was like, look, even my GPS, my car is not working all of a sudden. Just brand new. Woke up this morning, GPS in the car doesn't work. So that's technology. And then we have, shall we call it, the avatar glitches. The avatar glitches. Everyone is talking about the fact that, yeah, Moksha, brains not working. These guys should be all laughing because I was just trying to put sentences to, could be an interesting show tonight because I'm having trouble speaking and I'm highly caffeinated to keep me awake right now. So I might get talking really, really fast. Weird day. All day today. Really weird. It's been a weird fucking week, but today was especially weird where people were talking about heart palpitations, that feeling of like dizziness, like you're falling sideways, or just all around vertigo where every movement is knocking you off. Nausea, just out of the blue, or the other end of the digestive system, right out of the blue. Headaches, joint pains, again, like a lot of people I'm talking about, their knees are killing them today. My daughter, who's just 17, knees are killing her today for no reason. She doesn't have a knee problem. Exhaustion, or the counter side of that is not being able to sleep. But like literally, I laid down twice today. I had no choice. I had to go lay down. I was completely sideways. Like it was like I can't function anymore. To be here tonight, like I said, I've had three espressos. 3 very, very large espressos to get me through today. Just to keep me awake. everything is getting exponential. Is the do you want to call it symptoms, or the glitches in the program, the glitches in our reality, everything is becoming extremely exponentially bigger, wilder. But so have the synchronicities, shall we say. Synchronicities. So I'm going to start off with a little story. We're going to watch it. We're going to listen to a 30-minute video excerpt from 2012. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But the lead up to it, 4 months ago, I really started talking about the fact of we need to go back and start listening to these pre-2012 interviews, these pre-2012 shows, things that were talked about in early 2012, 2011, 2010. Because it feels like all of a sudden now they're becoming extremely relevant, even more relevant than they were back when the original recordings were made. And we've talked about a few of them. Anne Callahan went on a mission search for me last month and was awesome. And she brought up a few different pieces that was like, oh, well, isn't that just a little bit interesting how that kind of plays out exactly as to what's going on right now? Well, because I've been really busy, I haven't had a chance to really dive down. I keep saying I'm going to do this homework. I just haven't done it because I'm bad that way. Easily distracted. But we go down and we're going to fast forward to Sunday night. Sunday night is Fringe night for all the Unfuckers. We get together and we watch movies or we watch Fringe, which is what we've been watching for the last 6 months. Synchronistically, we were supposed to have watched season 4, episode 10 and 11 on Sunday night. And I jokingly said to the Unfuckers, oh, maybe we should watch 3 episodes because we really want to see episode 12. Episode 12 is a really, really good episode. Talking because Mummy can't concentrate on just putting food out of a pot onto a plate, apparently. Green Ozone, you're not the only one. You're not the only one.
Okay, looks like we're back.
I'm hearing a lot of that. Okay, we're back. Okay, so John, how's the best way for me to? Should I just play it?
What
I can share the screen.
The Bill Wood? The Bill Wood video?
Yeah.
You're
gonna play it.
I'm gonna play it.
Yeah, you're gonna play it. Okay, you try and play it. I know, but I just didn't know if you were gonna collapse on us because like internet's fucked up, man. Go ahead, you play it.
As far as the off-world basis, I do not possess any personal knowledge.
I'll roll myself a smoke while we're listening.
I do, however, believe in and have seen information that would suggest that anybody with a decent telescope could take a look at both the surface of the moon and the surface of Mars and see some things that look very terrestrial.
Sure.
And things that didn't exist 20, 30 years ago. One of the caveats that I do have some personal information that I did get personally involved in was some information that had to do with the Stargates and Looking Glass. And more specifically, the 2012 problem with those projects. I guess, popular opinion of what's out there right now is that the project was shut down because there was a problem when we approached 2012. I've heard it described a number of ways, but to my knowledge, the problem is that the timelines converge on that point in time. And when you know enough about the Stargate projects and the Looking Glass project to know that how string theory works and how the possibility of possibilities works and how making one choice over here doesn't necessarily mean that the other choice couldn't exist at the same time. But once you get your brain wrapped around this subject, you find out that at the end of 2012, in an easy way to put it, the choices that we make become less and less consequential to the future. And eventually we're pushed into this bottleneck of time, no matter which choice we make. And that's important to the people that had access to Looking Glass because they would use Looking Glass knowing the choices that they would make and the future would pop up. The big mistake was coming up with the possibility of future. And when we started using a computer to say, well, if we make this choice, it's 79% possible that this scenario happens, and 23% are possible, or whatever, you know, I'm using round numbers, that this scenario would happen. The understanding at the time was that was realistic. However, if you go down the road further and free will continues to exercise itself on this game, that 79% possibility sometimes changes very, very fast. But if you look at the situation in a point of time, it seems very realistic that that's the greatest possibility. What happened was people, very smart people, began to figure out that something big was coming up. Something that made it so all the possibilities of all the future scenarios of any choice, any possibility that was fed in and observed through the Looking Glass inherently ended up in the same future. And no decision, no possibility changed past a certain point. That's the big secret.
Okay, so is that certain 2012 in your understanding?
It well coincides with December 21st, 2012.
So at that point, all possibilities lead to the same
Timelines.
Rubicon.
All possible timelines lead to the same basic set of history in the future.
And what is that history to you? Did you know that, or did you find that out?
That is the big question. That is the big secret. That is what sends everybody that has all of the information, that knows everything, into a blind panic. The people that know everything about Looking Glass, that have gotten all the reports and all the information, the elites of the world, probably figured out that that was the end of the game, and nothing could be manipulated beyond that point.
So do you think that's held true? In other words, well, I have about 60 questions, but do you think that's true or holding true, that nothing can be manipulated, that they haven't found a way to manipulate, that that's still the case? I mean, this is knowledge that you would have gained back when?
Back when I was in the military, it would have been before '97 when I got in trouble. And it was things that one of my particular areas that I was amazingly intuitive about is problem solving / mission planning, or more specifically, taking a bad mission and fixing it, getting
So-
everybody through and out of it.
Troubleshooting an optimum future.
Exactly. Certainly knowing how string theory and possible futures works makes it so you can work your mind very quickly to see the reality of what's happening and decide what decisions need to be made to change it for a particular outcome.
Okay, but at a certain point you said that even the powers that be, so to speak, realized that having even abilities such as yourself, you're talking about, which they, in theory, had even using a computer or looking glass.
Right,
and
they had to use a computer to do it.
Right. So in essence, but at a certain point, it's still an end game. It's still, they cannot go beyond a certain point.
At a certain point, after they're done hearing the computer tell them, this is what's going to happen over and over and over and over again, all they become focused on is, how do we fix it?
Why? What is this that's going to happen? Do you know that?
Inevitable contraction of the timelines.
But what does that mean for this reality? Do you know that?
I don't know that. What I do know is that I was called in and asked to solve this problem, this timeline contraction problem. And I eventually did my due diligence and did all the investigating and basically only had one piece of information, and that was reinforcement. The computer's right. The timelines will contract down to some inevitable thing that you guys won't tell me about, so I can't help you.
But it's what you're basically, you came back with was, it is inevitable, whatever it is.
There is an inevitable event. It's been forecast, it's been predicted, it's been fed to us in a slop trough of what they want us to believe will happen.
But they don't actually
However,
know.
they don't actually have control over what happens. They only have control over the reaction, and it seems that no matter what they try to do to cause their desired reaction, it's going to have an opposite effect.
Interesting.
Now, it's much, much easier for me to explain today what that process is as opposed to back then. But if I had to give it a name, I would say it's the awakening process. It's an evolution of consciousness that cannot, will not, and no matter what decisions or possibilities are injected into the equation, eventually it all resolves down to us all learning the truth and becoming aware of this massive dam of lies that has been built that keep us from knowing massive volume of information that we should otherwise possess.
Okay. Well, that's very, very monumental to be told that from a person in your perspective, who's had your background and your exposure. Is it your understanding that the notion that looking glass has been, that there are various looking glasses around the globe supposedly, that according to Dan Burish were shut down. Is it your understanding they're actually not shut down?
I believe that they're shut down because they are all saying the same thing, and they're
they're
completely useless at this
redundant,
point.
is what you're saying.
Right. It's like the Wicked Witch, looking into the magic mirror and always getting the same answer. Well, if you were always getting the exact opposite of the answer that you wanted, you'd stop talking to the mirror. And that's essentially what happened with Looking Glass, is not only did they not want people to use it anymore because they knew it was just going to burp out the same thing, but at the same time they didn't want anybody else to know what it was saying, I'm sure.
That they would lose control,
because
in
that
essence.
information was of a monumental concern when I was in the military about how to prevent this inevitability. Now, at first I thought it was end of the world. Now I see end of the world as end of their world.
Well said. Okay. But are you aware, do you know the difference between Looking Glass and the Yellow Cube?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware of what happened to the Yellow Cube and how it was used and so on? Are you,
I believe that the Yellow Cube still exists. I can't say for certain if it's on this planet, but I would say that it's definitely protected from use at this point.
okay, well, that coincides with the testimony we got. Can you also verify that leaders of...
But let me say one thing about the Yellow Book and its differences with Looking Glass. The Yellow Cube or the Yellow Book would give you your possible future.
Yes.
So it took basically the choices that you would inherently make along a timeline and tell you what that timeline would be, given that you made all the choices that your brain would make.
Well, this is exactly what I was just going to ask you. What we were told is that leaders of governments and so on, people in high places, politically, would use this to try to see their most optimum future and then follow those. So they were using it to enhance their wealth, et cetera,
Yeah.
in a very egotistical way. And that was part of the problem with it. And that supposedly one of the specific things we were told had to do with Hillary. Are you aware of any of that?
You mean the 2012 protection for her?
Well, will you tell me what you know?
I don't have any firsthand knowledge of this. This is all back alley information. But one of the last predictions that was put out by the Yellow Cube was that, for all intents and purposes, and this is just my level of understanding, is that Hillary Clinton would be president in 2012. And when the Yellow Cube is involved, it leads me to question what I know about Looking Glass and string theory along with that. The first question that anybody that knew anything about the process would know is who was using the cube
Right.
when it made that prediction. If I knew that, then I could tell you why it would predict what it predicted.
Wasn't there also an issue with, I'm not sure, but in using the Yellow Cube, Yellow Book, however you want to term it, that they actually had to use it through an intuitive who had a high vibration, had to be in the vicinity to, in a sense, be the go-between between the person who wanted to use the cube
Right.
and the cube itself, because normally they didn't have the vibration necessary.
Correct. And that is a process that would prevent anomalies from popping out in predictions.
But it wouldn't completely.
No, and I'll tell you why. If it was used properly by somebody that knew how to use it and could eliminate their thought process from the machine's effective use, it would be very easy to get an exact, what future holds.
Right.
However, anybody that has that ability would inherently know that that information could not be given and would be protected. And that inherent notion would inject something into the yellow cube or the yellow book that would give an inaccurate statement. Just by the person that's using its intuition saying, if I tell the truth, it'll be bad. So the higher levels pick up on that, throw out a different scenario that
Right. but
isn't the truth.
It's in a sense the feedback loop gets dirtied somewhere along the line by exposure.
And that's why those pieces of technology should have never been used by humanity in its current level of understanding. Because for all intents and purposes, the technology doesn't work right when we use it.
Right, I totally get that. Okay, so to get back to Looking Glass and the possible futures that they do converge, and the notion of, is there anything else that you can tell us, that you would want to tell us about that and the rest of the laundry list of sort of information that you had direct exposure to, either for yourself or through someone that you had vetted?
The biggest cherry on top of all this conversation would be a synopsis to say that if I could convince everybody out there that for all intents and purposes, what we believe to be true eventually becomes true. If somebody convinces us that a major disaster is going to happen in the very near future, a major disaster happens in the very near future. If we don't buy into that fear and accept that there's really nothing that we know is going to happen, and accept of whatever happens, that makes the convergence of the timelines happen as naturally as possible. Any attempts to try to go away from this one inevitable conclusion, which I again see as a new beginning, an end of this reality, the beginning of something that we can't even possibly understand based on the level of our beliefs currently. But when all that information comes flooding out, there's going to be no denying what's true and what's a lie or what's illusion. We won't have the choice to believe that 9/11 happened because of a bunch of terrorists, because we'll know exactly what's happened. Basically what we're experiencing right now is two master chess players sitting at the board. And one of them looks down at the board and sees that he's in checkmate in 7 moves. And he looks across at his opponent and he knows that his opponent sees it too. So there's no getting out of it. So at this point, the loser can only prolong the game. The game, both players know the game is over. It's only a matter of time before he does this, and then you're forced to do this, and then he's forced to do this, and eventually checkmate. We, as a race, if we could understand that the game is over, that based on the rules of the game, the bad guys have already lost, the good guys have already won. Yes, there's moves left on the table, but those moves are being forced by the player that is going to win. The only way that checkmate can't happen is if the player that's winning makes a mistake. But from all of the information that I've gathered, all of the information that's been given, all of the information that's been vetted to me, it seems pretty obvious that the good guy player on the side of the chessboard knows exactly what has to be done to win the game. And so at this point, any mistake would be all but impossible. But again, you really have to understand the game to know that the guy that's losing is lost. And I'm sure most people sitting watching a chess match between two advanced chess players know the game's over long after the two players know it's over, because they can't see the board and see that there's only 7 moves left.
Okay, but when we come to this convergence, and again, you've seen, or the looking glass has seen up to that point.
Now, let me say why I believe that it comes down to one inevitability, is because I was entrusted in getting it down to 2 possibilities. And I've heard both of those possibilities talked about in massive proportions, the good and the bad.
Okay, do you want to talk, so can you in one sentence say what the good was and the bad was, or are you able to do that?
To most easily put it to people,
I suppose.
One scenario is what most people would understand to be ascension, or an evolution of consciousness that brings us out of the cocoon and turns us into a butterfly. Timeline 2 is some kind of major global catastrophe that drives most of us underground and leaves a few of us on top to fend for ourselves.
Very well put. Okay, so I would imagine, and you can.
But I would also
this.
like to point it out that they call Timeline 2 Timeline 2. It seemed very odd to me that even back then it was identified as not 1. And that one
is the
one didn't
ascension
get
one.
talked about.
Okay, but 1 is the one that involves what in essence would be ascension, or moving into, from the cocoon to the butterfly. Okay, but I believe, based on what you're telling me, that they would have used a lot of people like you that had a proclivity for being able to see the future, to be what is a sort of an advanced psychic remote viewer, whatever you want to call that, and looking glass, to posit these potential futures, to go up to that point and to view it, and that you're just one of many. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. And back in 1991, when I began my little adventure in the military, I would say that it was pretty obvious that there wasn't very many of us. However, you go 20 years into the future and you find out that it's coming to the point where there's a lot of people that have that ability, that are inherently realizing that ability, and are able, through some unknown extraordinary means, to develop that ability inside themselves without any outside help or assistance. And it's quite obvious that as far as advanced intellectual abilities, as far as simple intelligence levels, and cognitive skills of the human race has increased exponentially in the past 20 years. And people that were 10 years old in 1991 are now 30 years old and fully awake and conscious of this burning inside that says, I am a lot more than what I see in the mirror.
Absolutely. Okay. I do have a question, in regard to what the military-industrial complex has been working on. Because with the knowledge that you say they have, assuming that they have this level of knowledge that you're talking about, right? In other words, of the timelines converging and the fact that there was going to be something. And I don't know if you saw the movie or the TV show Fast Forward. I mean, but there's been so many possible, scenarios in that regard. But one of the things that goes on is they are very busy building underground bases, supposedly underground cities. And so they seem to be hedging their bets for the negative timeline and putting their emphasis there. And would you say that that is because why would somebody want something negative to come true? Well, of course, the Illuminati have a program that they're working on in that regard. But basically, the sort of well-meaning military that just goes after contingencies, and is just working towards a future that they want to prevent or deal with when it comes. Can you explain why they have been hedging their bets to such a degree on the negative?
It's very simple. They're insane. And beyond insane, they have literally deluded themselves into believing that they can somehow manage to get away with what they're trying to get away with. There is a distinct lack of reality in that thinking.
Okay, what about the notion that CERN, for example, is engaged in trying to beat that game, as you call it?
I would say, look at the problems CERN has had. The crazy little things that have kept that project from moving forward. Certainly they have never even come close to getting that project to the level that they want it to be to do what they really want to do with it.
Okay, well, what about the notion that that's the party line, that they haven't been able to do so? But if you really think about it, that's what they would prefer people believe, so that they don't think that there's a threat.
But when you listen to the interviews of the scientists that are working on the project, even they say that it seems like somebody or something from the future won't let them get that project done. And the craziest little things have caused massive damage to that project. And when you get the foremost thinker in string theory saying, yeah, I don't think we're going to do it because I don't think fate wants us to do it, that says something about a scientist.
Freaking awesome. That's all I have to say. Freaking awesome. Beautiful.
Now, yes. Sorry, guys. My Zoom, just as a heads up, so when we started this, I said my Zoom is being really glitchy. My Zoom is really fucking glitchy now. I've been having a hard time even typing into the chat to talk to you guys, and my picture keeps freezing. For me, my end, not you guys and my end. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of pieces. So right off the bat, because I'm going to go kind of reverse order. CERN, what does he say about CERN? One of the biggest Mandela effect arguments that happened in 2015 was a whole shit ton of us said, yeah, we don't remember CERN until 2013. Like 2013, it was like, boom, here's CERN. Hi, how you doing? There was none of this, it's operational, it's working, it's doing anything. There was none of that. And then, blammo, it appeared on the scene. And there's a whole pile of us, and we all got said, oh, well, it's just because you weren't paying attention and you weren't, do it. Like, no. He's telling you right here. CERN was not operational when he did this interview, which was in January of 2012. Now, if you're going to do an interview on with someone like Project Camelot, etc., knowing the let's say the high information crowd that they attract with their interviews, you're not going to fuck up and not do your homework on something like that. Like, do you know what I mean? You're not going to say, oh, well, CERN's broken. If it was clearly operational at that point. So, like, that for me was one of those big moments where we were like, Elizabeth, that's not the point. We're talking Mandela effects. It's not about what you know personally about someone working. We're not saying that CERN did not operate. We're saying that in our timeline, in my timeline, CERN was not operational to the capacity that it was apparently operational afterwards, like 2013, etc. Okay? I know, and that's what I'm saying. This is where we get into the argument, Elizabeth, and I'm not arguing your time. What your reality is not what I'm saying that your reality is wrong. I'm saying in my reality, it was different.
For me, it was like something way off. It was like quantum, when they were like also talking about quantum computers. That was like totally way off, like deep into the future. Like, you know.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
what
so
I remember.
I want to not get sidetracked on the CERN thing. I just wanted to point that out because that was one little piece that he dropped in there right at like the last 2 minutes of that. It was like, oh, wait a second. Okay. I have so many notes and I don't even know how to go into this because I've got so many notes off my side notes off my side notes. It is very, very interesting because he talks about it coming down to two timelines. Timeline 1 and Timeline 2. And we'll call Timeline 2 is theirs. Timeline 1 is ours. Timeline 2 is theirs. And what was very, very interesting is when he talked about the fact, towards that end there, and he's talking about the end game, they already know that Timeline 1 is 1. And he used the analogy of the chessboard. And I found it very, very interesting that he said, basically, there's 7 moves left. That the guy who's the loser looks at the chessboard and can see that he is in checkmate in 7 moves. And yet the winner and the loser both can see that it's checkmate. The game is over. And all they can do, the loser, is stretch out the moves in hopes of delaying the end game. And that is exactly what I think they did in 2012. I've talked about this quite a few times.
Did they really?
Listening to this brought it that much more. Hold on, Bossy, just give me a second, please. Sorry, and I'm literally glitching. My Zoom is glitching really, really badly right now, so I'm having massive lag. I think that's what they figured out. They figured out that they had lost. And they figured out a way, using whatever this technology bits and pieces that they have, to be able to pull us out of, here's linear time, to be able to pull us out of linear time. Thereby prolonging their game. Prolonging the amount of time that they could give themselves to try and trick a way out, to try and cheat a way out, to try and come up with a fancy schmancy move to get so they win. I also think that this wasn't just a 7-year jump. It wasn't just a 2012 to 2000. I think that we had another one of these things that happened in 2015. Hence the fact in January, the first week of January 2015, a whole pile of us woke up and went, what the fuck was that? What happened to time? Where are we now? What fucking year is it? We don't even know what fucking year it is. And we talked during 2015 is when the Mandela effect started. Ostensibly started. Okay? That's when it came out, boom, like a tidal wave that rolled across the planet.
Danny, that could have been one of those 7 moves, you know?
And that is exactly what I'm thinking. If they talk about their moves, did they make a jump? The other thing that came up, and Lisa Harrison and I talked about it a lot in 2015, that the gut piece that we kept getting was that they were in a complete panic. They were in a complete panic. Like they thought they had more time. They thought they had more time to be able to set their pieces in motion. And all of a sudden it was like, fuck, shit, now what do we do? And then we had another one that kind of dropped in. And we ended up with like another kind of semi-loop. 2017. Again, we have all kinds of fuckery happens. All kinds of bullshit takes place. My absolute gut feeling for the last 4 or 5 months, 6 months, is it that we're here in 2019 and they played their last move. That they can't do that loop again. That they can't, whatever that little move that they have been doing for the last 7 years, they can't play that move again. There's something happening, and right now it feels like there are two timelines. However you want to define that, they're doing this. And it's as if they're pushing theirs. And we've talked about this multiple times over the course of the summer, that feeling that they are so trying to push their artificial timeline. And to the question that I have of like, did they need to have a certain amount of, and I'm going to use the insulting word, organic humans, if they could pull enough organic humans over into their timeline, could that set that reality? Could that somehow cement and make that timeline stronger? Andrea, interesting number, isn't it? 144,000. Funny how numbers get played out. I'm not going to say yes. I don't know. Fuck off, mosquitoes. It feels like there's been a draw, like pull, like if they could just get enough organic human consciousness, however you want to determine that, whatever words you want to use, onto their timeline, that they could power their timeline. Does that make sense? That they could use that consciousness to power their timeline through and hopefully overpower the first timeline one. And it feels like right now it is like this. Boom, boom. I have had, just on the concept of this idea of pulling consciousness into that timeline, I have had multiple people talk about in the last few weeks, and we've had 2 in the Unfuckers have posted in Unfuckers about it. The feeling when they were asleep of being taken, of feeling themselves being pulled out and being forced out of their bodies, being forced out of their timeline, perhaps. I've had a lot of people talking about that kind of feeling. The last time I really felt a shit ton of that was in 2013, 2014. And all of a sudden, it seems like that is now playing out again. This, like, almost a desperate pull. Like, if they can just pull people and pull them over, that they could energize, fire up, get enough people creating that they can set theirs. And yeah, Moksha, I agree. I can feel the back and forth. And that's, how can we express that? I can feel the back and forth. You feel it in the people that you know around you doing this back and forth. You can literally feel the back and forth between these two. And watching Fringe and that entire episode, I'm going to put, when we put this recording of the show in the archive and I upload the video of it, I'm going to be putting all the links to a pile of YouTube videos. So I'll put the one for the Bill Brock Raider. Will have the good copy of the video. If people want to watch a good copy, it will be in the Unfuckers library so that people have access to it. I got a bunch of things. Yeah. Go ahead.
I got it on my mind. Okay. What if it's, remember we talked about the primes? You know.
Yep.
You remember back around your birthday when I looked like shit and I told you guys I kept getting pulled out of body?
Yep.
And I was scared because I didn't know what was going to happen to me.
Yep.
I went through that for a solid week and all kinds of shit. So my thought on this is, what if, like the big singers and actresses and things, you know, very creative beings, obviously, what if they are primes and they had to sign up for that alternate space?
Maybe.
And we've seen so many of them leaving. Maybe they're trying to bring as many primes over into their space as possible so that both spaces are saved. Like they went back and started making the changes. Like, I think it has to do with prime source energetics. Like they're willing to bet that if enough of them are over there, that will be spared somehow.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
You know, I don't know. I just think it has to do with primes.
And that's what I'm saying with organic human consciousness. I'm talking about like kind of at that prime level. Yeah, sorry, Bossy. Go ahead.
Let me throw in a different idea. What is if these choke points or these bottlenecks where we can't see past are those moments where nothing is yet decided, like a prism, right? Like sunlight that is already, hold on a second, like sunlight that is already broken up, comes in all colors, hits a prism, right? Comes back out as a bundled stream of light and goes into this light form, right? Like a bottleneck. Let me go into the time thing we heard about and we talked about. What is like the movie Doctor Strange, right? Yeah, he became. Did you see it?
Oh yeah,
Then?
Of course, about 100 times.
Hang on, there was this moment where he used the time crystal to go back into a dimension that was not introduced of time. So time was not there, but this dimension had movement. It could do everything, right?
Exactly.
Like it wasn't frozen. So he introduced them about the concept of time, right? Like he looped the times until that guy decided yes or no, right? So he forced them into that thing. And in that Infinity War movie, he said he saw so many possibilities and there's only one version where it might work, right?
Yeah.
So it was a Hail Mary that he sent. So what that means is at his point in time, he couldn't see past this event horizon because at this very, very moment in time, all the timelines bundle back into that choke, into that bottleneck, right? Where it's not yet decided because I can only see what's happening there if I'm there, not from the past and not from the future because it's not yet decided. But in that very moment that they're gambling on, where they're trying to influence people to do whatever, right? If I can, like Dawn said, a prime, if I can distract the prime not doing the shit he's supposed to do, then the outcome is different in that very moment when it's decided, right? If that prime would have been there, the outcome is decided. And once the outcome is decided and I'm past the bottleneck, I can see the other possibilities that come out of this prism, like, you know, like the light comes in
maybe
in all shades and
maybe
gets bundled and gets shut out in different versions, right? Like different possibilities.
Yeah. No. Maybe. Dude, we don't have answers. Like, we'd throw the shit on the table, but like, it's just putting the puzzle pieces on the table because no one's got the fucking answers, right? One of the interesting things
but isn't it
is you talked about the two timelines, right? And yes.
Isn't it funny right now that DC is putting out the Infinite Earth saga on for their DC shows on the CW? Isn't that funny right now? Because
I hadn't heard that, so I didn't know that.
So, and it all culminates in what year? 2020. That's where it's gonna end. So they're doing this whole thing that leads up to. And it has to do with Arrow dying.
I'll have to look that up, dude.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah, it.
Oh, I'll look that. What did you say the show's called? What's the show called again?
It's gonna be all the shows, but they're gonna have this like other arc where it's gonna be called Crisis on Infinite Earth. It's where
Infinite Earth.
Like it's gonna have this crazy cast of people. Kevin Conroy, the guy who's played Batman in the animated series in the games, he's actually gonna be playing Bruce Wayne in the first live action role that he's done. So that's gonna be freaking awesome. I mean, they're gonna have some other actors like that played Superman from the movies and Brute Wars.
Okay, dude, I don't want to get sidetracked. We're talking about superheroes, so I'm going to bring this right back to the stuff that we're talking about. Okay? The other question I've brought up in 2015 and over the last couple of years is the catastrophe question, right? Where we had all these different people like Cliff High, but multiple other psychics, talking in the lead up to 2013, saying that in 2013 there was going to be a catastrophic event, and then all of a sudden, poof, that it just disappeared like that, and it was no longer talked about. It just disappeared. Okay,
it didn't disappear. It actually happened. Remember?
And now we've gone.
Danny, it happened.
No, it didn't.
Hang on. Didn't you remember that meteoroid they shot down
No,
over
darling,
Russia?
no. Did the east coast of America get flooded?
No, it didn't, because the asteroid got shot over Russia. Remember that asteroid that exploded over Russia that devastated like hundreds of kilometers of glass and everything with the pressure wave? And if you look at that video, what was that? Not the Tunguska, the other one that happened in 2013. You can Google it.
Yeah, I know.
You see that rod hitting that
I know
thing.
exactly which one you're talking about. I know, and I get what you're saying, Bossy. I'm saying that's a supposition. That is purely a supposition that that's what that was, et cetera, et cetera. We don't know what it was or what took place. Regardless, the catastrophic event did not take place. Regardless of what all the psychics saw, regardless of what all these people and people like Cliff High, who's not psychic, that's literally him generating all the information through all the computer streams of information. That event did not take place.
Which goes back to what that guy said about if you expect something to happen, it will. If you expect it to not happen, it won't. And I think they are dead scared.
Yeah, but
exactly. And that's why the hurricane jumped. Because it hit there where they were the weakest.
Well, and I have another theory on that one, Mercedes, and I was questioning this with Anne a couple of days ago about the whole thing of why it was over Bahamas. And this is, everyone wants to always talk about the fact of like when these things are engineered or when they're man-driven, etc., technology-driven hurricanes, etc., they always want to look at it as the bad. But what I said to Anne the other day is, if Dorian had hit Miami with the ferocity that it hit Bahamas, that island in the Bahamas that was wiped out had a population of, I think it was like 60,000 people. And it was devastated. Like the island was fucking flattened. Right? There are almost 6 million people in Miami. There are 21 million people in Florida. Now, did they use some kind of a technology that held back? Like basically they fucking held the Dorian over top of the Bahamas off the coast of Florida until it blew out the vast majority of its power, and then they let it go?
Yes.
And that's why it went, right up the whole coast that fast?
Yes,
Because 21, if that had hit the States, the devastation to Florida would have been catastrophic. It would have been catastrophic.
I heard of plans that they had plans because there is this nuclear plant
Yeah.
in St. Lucie or something like that. It's called. They wanted to hit that. And I want to say, on my web browser, if I open another window, a news page opens. And I had a line saying, on that day, nuclear catastrophe like Chernobyl. I clicked to it and it disappeared.
Oh,
they planned something. They planned something. I never mentioned it before but now, so they planned something. I don't know if they really, it had the power to make something like Chernobyl or Fukushima, but they said in the line was a nuclear explosion like Chernobyl, and not like Fukushima, because it would be more like Fukushima, methinks. I don't know.
But remember, sorry, Danny, real quick, and then we all need to stop.
Here's the thing, though, right? So and I've listened today, massive amount of stuff from Dan. What was that, Jane?
Oh, no, you go. Everybody's been interrupting you. You talk.
Okay.
I'll chime in later.
Okay. No problem. I've been listening to a pile of Dan Bursch videos, going back and listening to these 2007, 2009, 2011 operator stuff from prior to 2012. They're both very, very clear that there are the white hats and the black hats in all aspects of government, in the military, etc. So what if you have, like, one aspect of them is trying to plan a hit on, for example, this nuclear power plant, and the other aspect comes in and goes, I don't fucking think so, and they do something to alter the pathway of the hurricane to stop it from taking place. And unfortunately, Bahamas got ripped to shreds because of that. But in the greater scheme of things, when they start balancing out like loss of life and damage, they go, we got to keep it off of the coast of Florida, because that's millions and millions of people versus, a couple of thousand. And that sounds terrible, but in the same thing, if you're talking about a nuclear power plant, etc. Aaron, you had your hand up. What would you want to ask, love, or add to this?
I just kind of wanted to give a summary of, like, because I feel like we're focusing on what this means via the hurricane, and I just kind of wanted to broaden it. Like, what do we know?
Bring it back out. Yep.
Yeah, bring it back out. They know timeline 1 is inevitable. They know that, like, their only hope is to delay it and hope we mess up. Meaning that, like, they know that our expectations create reality. And so they need us to believe in their timeline. Like, they need us to believe that, like, it's not like, and fear is really their only hope. Fear and us giving into their timeline is their only hope that this is going to happen. Like, it's obvious that since 2012, they've managed to somehow loop time to get us from preventing, like, to, you know, get to that 7 moves ahead. They know that it's inevitable. And I feel like that, and another thing that occurred to me is that, like, it only takes one. Maybe what that means, what I feel like that means, it only takes one timeline. Like in my reality, my personal reality, I know it's game over. Anything can happen, but in my reality, with all the parallel versions of you that are in my reality, it's game over for all of them. And so it only takes one, I think really means it only takes one person's timeline to know that it's game over. And that's why it freaks them out, because I feel like one awakened organic person equals like at least 1 million awakened asleep organic people, you know? And so, I mean, that's just kind of,
and we've hypothesized that a lot, Aaron, right? I mean, what is the not to define people by as their value and to put us, do you know what I'm saying? But if you have someone who's conscious, organic person who is consciously gets it and is using their intuition and is using their intent and is using all this, that has to count, in my opinion, far higher than several 100,000, even million of people who are under the programming, who are, or their intent is not truly an intent because they're under the programming, right?
Yes.
Do you know what
Yes.
I'm saying? They're just doing what the programs are telling them. They're mind controlled to do that. I don't think that carries the weight, if you will, as a conscious organic human actually setting their fucking intent.
And it's kind of like when they were talking, when that guy was talking about the cube, they would need at least one person who was free of their mind and their own thought to work with the key.
Yeah,
right?
It could, as an intermediary, they had to be of the right frequency, who could actually interface with the yellow book, yellow cube, whatever.
That's right.
But that thing is also smart as a whip, obviously, and intuitive. And intuitive would, I mean, that box would read it intuitive like that. So she, you know, there's no, you know how we always say you can't bullshit yourself? This is a great example of that.
Yeah.
A living soul cannot bullshit. It doesn't matter how hard they try. I always tell everybody I'm a terrible liar.
Oh no, I'm a really, really good liar. You've never seen me faced with government agents. I'm really fucking good at it.
Yeah, I'm not good. I'm good at it. I really, unless it's life or death for me, I don't think I
do a lot of traveling and have to deal with TSA and border control. I can lie through my teeth, the likes of which you ain't never seen before, because you have to get through border control.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's true. Sorry, it's truth. Like, if they knew that we're traveling to places and planning on living there, they're not going to let you just waltz into the country. They'd be like, no, you can't live here. Get the fuck out. No, we're here for a business meeting. It's a holiday. We're just here for 2 weeks.
Okay, well then I would have probably lied too. So
One thing I love about that, you can't bullshit yourself, is that I feel like many of us have now gotten to the point where, like, it's in our core, we know this is game over.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that brings it back to, so there's a video, Lisa Harrison interviewed Bill Brockbrader right after this, like about 2-3 weeks after that Project Camelot that we just listened to. Lisa Harrison interviewed him, and I'll put the link in with the archive article that goes along with this. And it's interesting because at one point, of course, being Lisa, they get into a lot more of the esoteric kind of stuff. But one of the things that he talks about that is really, really interesting is the concept of the duality and the dark versus the light. And the fact that kind of the way the template seems to play out is a lot of times you need the dark to be able to shine the light. to be able to really show the light. It's that dark that pushes people up out of it. Do you know what I mean? That pushes people to rise up above the shit and then bring their own light to things, right? We keep talking about that. This time right now is the darkest time, as far as I'm concerned, in all of fucking history. Like, it's not just financially dark. It's not just politically dark. It's geomagnetically. Like, everything right now is insane. Insane. And when I say dark, I don't necessarily mean dark that way, but the insanity is so epic at the moment. No matter what subject you look at, it doesn't matter what your pet subject is, be it science, be it earth changes, be it astrology or astronomy, be it politics, finance, healthcare. It doesn't matter. It is so epically insane right now that even the most asleep, if you will, the most heavily programmed people are going, what? It's a waking moment. And then you kind of play that in that whole thing of the idea of the chess moves, right? And he kind of, Bill says it, and then Dan Birch says it in this one video as well. The fact of every time they, the quintessential they, make their move towards their agenda, there's an equal and opposite reaction to the other way. That you can't get them to, like the bankers and all the government guys who are so fucking greedy, they can't get it through their heads that every time they do this, they also create this. And it's this opposite of, if we look at these last moves on the chessboard, if we want to call it that, as they make the more panicked moves, as they are making things that are so completely crazy, the opposite reaction that they don't want is also happening at the same time. People are waking up in the tons at the moment. Even if they're only seeing a little piece of the puzzle right now, even if that's all they're seeing is one little piece that directly affects them or is part of their little niche that they like to watch, they are being slapped in the face over and over and over, like, wake up, wake up. And that's what I kind of see in that. Every move that they make to try and set this in is causing the reaction on the opposite end of it, that more people are waking up and they can't get their head around it. It's like they can't do anything else. They can't do anything else to prevent it because they must keep trying more and more drastic moves. Yet every drastic move they make just causes more shit to happen that makes more people pop out of their coma.
And that is why I meant bottleneck.
Sorry. I was kind of thinking on the quantum physics level again with the upspin and the downspin of entangled particles, right?
Yeah.
So not superposition, but entanglement. So when particles physically meet, they get entangled. So all of us are connected because we're kind of physically meeting here in this space. So I lost my thought. I'm just thinking that, well, there's two thoughts on this. So in quantum entanglement, you have particle A, particle B. One is in an upspin, one is in a downspin, but the total has to always be zero. So what if we're all entangled and they're taking organic souls over to their spot, like Dawn mentioned earlier, and trying to get them all entangled, and it's a battle of oh, somebody in here who knows quantum physics really well, because I'm not explaining it good.
No, absolutely. If you can entangle, if you can take that prime and entangle it to one timeline.
But it would cause,
yes.
It would cause a paradox.
Yes.
That's what they want.
Yes.
But see.
No, I don't think they want it. I think the problem is they don't want to cause a paradox, but every time they do it, they do cause a paradox.
Right. But in their mind, that would extend things, I think. I think the Materium knows better. I think this has already been thought about. Because in the end, all of this would happen, you guys. If we were on their side, we'd be doing the same fucking shit.
I only have one question. Why did it take so long? Damn it.
Well, time is relevant.
Okay, so
But going back to the quantum entanglement thing, really quick, little
yeah.
like if one person knows it's game over in their soul, then for that person it will be game over for that timeline. But that person is entangled, and if let's say that were me, I don't know, I'm entangled with all of you. All of you are entangled with your family, who are entangled with other people, right? So that's kind of how I feel like that moves it along.
You mean like all us unfuckers are entangled?
Yes.
And through us, the rest of the world, basically. Like, it's not that many connections.
Yeah. Was it the six points of Kevin Bacon?
It's why it's called the Matrix.
But we're going to call it the 6 points of the unfuckers?
So that's why our book,
6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? It's the 6 degrees of unfuckers.
There you go.
right? But didn't he state in the video in there,
Okay, so
what you believe to come true comes true? So he said, stay out of fear, right? So if we're all unfuckers and we're all entangled and we stay out of fear, that's not going to come true.
Exactly.
Right? And then like Zero pointed out earlier, one organic soul is worth 1,000 maybe, just for a degree of conversation, more powerful than the inorganic soul. And maybe that's why Don's theory about them taking the organic souls is like a battle of the organic souls. And in one timeline, they've got the fear factor going. And in this one, we're calling their bullshit, right?
Well, and the other thing,
and that,
the other thing too is anybody, I believe, okay, I'm going to say what I think here. There's no living souls are better than anybody else. We're all equally powerful.
No, I didn't mean that.
No, that's not what we mean, Dawn. That's not what we mean. And that's what I was trying to put the surprise in there.
I'm just setting a background for you.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that's how I think. So in their mind, they think, oh, we'll grab the most creative, the ones that have the most energetic because a lot of these entertainers are very creative. You can see that. I think somehow they think that they can bring some kind of balance out for themselves where if those living souls, like they sign themselves over, like there's some kind of lore with that in their mind. I don't believe any of that sticks. None of it sticks, but they're willing to, these are beings that have no intuition. I mean, they're going blind, y'all. At the end of the day, they're handicapped as hell.
Yeah, and this is that's the very interesting bits is when you actually listen to a bunch of the Bursch's old videos, Bill, Brock Rader, Wood, whatever. There is several points where they talk about exactly that, like the fact of, like Bill said in the end of the thing, he says they're doing it because they're fucking insane. Because they're so tied into their own, right? They don't live on the same level of reality, which is why they do the horrible things that they do, because it's just like they do believe that they're above that. They do honestly, they believe that I'm much better than you, so therefore I can just do whatever the fuck I want to you.
It's all about hierarchy.
I actually believe that.
Yeah,
right.
It's all about hierarchy. Where we come from, there's none of that. So
okay. And not only that, is like the whole thing is what were we talking about last month, 2 months ago? Oh, what was it? And they were talking about the planetary hierarchy. When I talked to oh my God, I can't come up with names. What the fuck? Alan James. Holy shit, that was terrible. And that idea of like that pyramid, and these guys who think they're oh so right? They're so boss, but they're so far down on the pyramid, they don't even realize how low on the pyramid they are. That they're just one of us, and that they're considered to be just another one of us.
Yeah, but think about it.
They're just another human, yet they think they're above.
If they can get living souls to buy into that and power up their fucking future, it's the same shit, but they cannot hide themselves by their energy and by the setup like you see. Any living soul is going to see that. I would hope.
Yeah.
One thing I posted on my Facebook is like, I will not give in to fear. I will not give away my inner authority, and I will not forget who I am.
Yep. And guys, I talk about things like I talk about prepping all the time. And as I always make that very, very clear, it's not about fear. It's not about fear. It's not about being afraid of oh my God, an asteroid's going to hit the planet and wipe out all the dinosaurs. I mean, the politicians. It's about very calm and collected, being ready for anything that happens. Because right now we do feel it going like this, woo, 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 where it's going flipping back and forth, right? So that's just one of the pieces I wanted to say. What I just wanted to bring up. Oh, so I was talking to Nancy last week, earlier this week, before some other time, not today. Nancy would be able to give us a time date stamp, maybe. I don't know.
2 days ago.
2 days ago. Okay, there you go. And I was telling her I was chatting with Sarah Westall. And Sarah Westall just had 3 remote viewers on her show. And she came to me with a bunch of questions and was like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, yes, this is very, very, and I gave her some information about remote viewing, the stuff that I've done, and said that, no, like this is the deep woo. But I watched the show and the interview with her and these, part 1 and part 2 with her and these 3 remote viewers. And she sent me a video of one of the guys from the show, and it was a remote viewing that he did in September of 2018. And I think I've got it saved. I will post it here so that you guys can see it as well. And it was really fucking interesting because what he does is when he's talking about the remote viewing is he spent 5-10 minutes kind of giving you the highlights of what he had viewed. But then he puts on the video of him actually doing the remote viewing and writing everything down as he's remote viewing it. And it's very, very interesting because I threw it over to Nancy because Nancy studied some remote viewing stuff as well. So I wanted to get her opinion on it. But as he explained it, but then when he was actually in the remote viewing and he's drawing his little sketches and his little diagrams and putting his words down and talking it through, I was getting a very, very different, I don't want to say conclusion. I was seeing it differently from him. And the first thing Nancy said to me was the same thing. She was just like, whoa. He's not seeing this right. And I'll put the video in for you guys to watch because it's quite interesting. Because he talks about, at the beginning, he talks about an event and he draws like the earth and like the sun, and he talks about this kind of energy and some kind of a wave. But then he also talks about, he sees technology, and the technology is going to be used, he keeps saying is going to be used across the planet to change everyone, to change everyone's emotions, to change everyone's like mental, how they're thinking, et cetera, to control people. And I said, my gut, as soon as I was listening to it, he's talking about two different events, and one's already happened and the other one is coming. And he's seeing it as one event because maybe if he's looking through time, it's a crossing of the timelines. Does that make sense? As in, he saw the use of technology to, for example, perhaps jump us out in 2012 and take us off linear time. And then he saw the wave coming in. Yeah, Nancy's just put the video, the link to the video in there. And it was interesting because you can, as you're watching it, watch him when he's doing the actual remote viewing. See what you get from it, because I got very, very intuitively just very different pieces from it. And it was like as if he maybe, and we talk about belief structures, everyone's got narratives, they've got belief structures. And I know with remote viewing, you've got to try and, all these things are supposed to be set up in place to stop that from interfering with the information.
He's got a technology bias, I think, on that one when he does the analysis, right? Like part of the remote viewing protocol, you go through just what's happening. You go through sensory, you go through different things, you use word descriptors, then you do a 15-second drawing, and it's just like a line drawing, and then you do what they call a stage 4 analysis, and you go through all these factors that are like sensory, dimensions, aesthetic impact, what you're perceiving, emotional impact, what your viewing's perceiving. There's something called AOL, which is an analytic overlay. That's when your monkey mind comes in. So you're getting the information coming in, and an AOL is a thought that comes up. It's you're trying to make an object out of the information that you're getting. So you've got to declare it, and it stops the process. It kind of resets it again. So he's got some AOLs in there, but I kind of felt that he was leaning towards technology, whereas we're seeing the event. Now, whether we're biased or he's biased, it doesn't matter. There's information coming through showing this wave, this event, something's, and he even pegged 2020. That's why this 2020 is coming up again and again and again, this 2020 date. Or 2019, 2020, you know. Yeah. So sorry, that's my take on it.
Thank you, Nancy. Exactly. It was interesting. And again, it's interesting that out of the blue, Sarah Westall drops that information over to me. And again, it deals with that same pieces of information from, again, a completely separate, different source. I find it really interesting that we just keep seeing these pieces come out, and when they all come together within, what are we, Wednesday? So within Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days. Within 4 days, all these pieces all drop in, boom, 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 boom. I don't believe in coincidence. I just don't believe in coincidence. There's too much going on here. And it seems to me that some of the answers we might be looking for, or let's not say answers, because answers are few and far between. Some of the pieces of the puzzle we might be looking for are in that information that was given to us pre-2012. And these people that did all these interviews on places like Project Camelot and that. If you see something come up in your feeds, whether it's on your YouTube recommended or history or something that comes up on Facebook in that is pre-2012, I highly encourage you to watch it or look at it or read it and see what it has to say. Because I have a feeling a lot of that stuff is going to start being hammered in our face. Because obviously, like I said, 4 months ago I said I was going to do it, and I never did. I never made time for it. So it's like the universe just turned around and was like, seriously, pay attention. Look, I'm going to send you all the links. And everyone just drops all the links in for me. So if that kind of stuff comes up, you know what? Time Bandits didn't. But there was, oh, fuck, Deb, what movie was it that came up? It's a movie from that same genre, if you will, of that time, did come up, and I laughed. Because I was like, that's kind of like Time Bandits. Right there. Not Time Bandits, but it's kind of like it. Yeah, Aaron?
As we were kind of talking, it kind of occurred to me what their last updated agenda is. Like, since they know Timeline 1 is inevitable, obviously they've been trying to loop to never get there. But I really suspect they're trying to get us and the public to think that the good timeline is a slim chance. That's what they all want. Like Infinity War. Like billions of
1 in 14 million. Yep.
And then one timeline where it's good, and you need superheroes to do the exact thing perfectly. It's like, come on, no. Like, I feel like there's an agenda to make it seem like that one timeline is like the infinitesimal possibility that, like, it's not.
You assume they know. You assume they know.
That's because we're basing the assumption on the information that we're discussing tonight, Bossy. Like, we're talking about the information that was discussed tonight. That's why we're going on the assumption that they know, because that's the information we're discussing.
Did you guys watch Dark Crystal: The Age of Resistance?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay, well, just I'm not spoiling anything, but just like the races wanted balance, even with the bad guys, and I really think that's what needs to happen between the duality of it all.
I have to see it. I'm dying to see it, Blair. I'm dying to see it. I've actually kind of said, because my family's watching it, but they always watch it when it's like, I'm cooking dinner as well. So you're kind of like stirring a pot, but you're also watching, but you're So I said, maybe as soon as we finish Fringe, which we're getting close to being finished Fringe, maybe the Dark Crystal is the next one that we'll have to sit down and watch.
Basically, it's a story of the global elite being exposed. And people realize that. Like,
I think if normal people watched it, normies, whatever you want to fucking call them, it would open their eyes. Maybe not. Who knows? The fluoride. Whatever.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, you'd think that all those people watched Fringe back in 2013. You thought that would have woken them up, but most of them just thought it was a TV show and took it as fiction. Like I said, look at some of the movies we've watched. Some of the movies we've watched as the Unfuckers, like, Marvel's Winter Soldier. Like, that's so much fucking truth about Operation Paperclip. Here you go. Whoosh! And everyone just was like, yeah, what a great movie. Too bad they have no concept about the fact that they're literally giving you the truth in your fucking face in that movie.
That's exactly how Dark Crystal is. In your face, right there. No really abstract motherfucking shit. It's just fucking there.
It's just right here. Let's see if anyone takes a hint.
I don't even care if the people asleep don't realize it, because seeds have a way of sprouting when they're ready.
Exactly. You can't unlearn something. You can't unhear something, right? So I'm spraying myself down with mosquito spray because apparently they're like out to kill me tonight. No, exactly. That's what I always say. We're seed planters. You can't unhear something, and it may take a month or a year or even 10 years for that seed to sprout. But when it does, that hint is already there.
And even if they're not consciously aware of what they're watching, their subconscious fucking knows.
Yeah. Well, that's it, darlings. We are out of time. And I'll got a couple things to say in our private discussion after this. But really, Clive. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so sorry, I'm just like totally glitching out there for a quick second. It's the Matrix. Sunday is Fringe episodes. What are we on? Season 4, episode 13, 14, I think. This Sunday.
But we missed one episode.
It's kind of a really sad episode, so I don't really know if you want to watch it.
Okay.
I was kind of glad that we missed it because it's one of those really, really sad episodes. It's not vital to the storyline. It's a very sad episode. It's not vital to the storyline. If anyone wants to go back and watch episode 10 in season 4, go right ahead. It's in the Unfuckers library. But I'm kind of glad we didn't watch it. Next Wednesday, there will be no Unfuckit discussion. I keep reminding. Apparently, we're all having issues with dates and times, right, Mercedes? No one. I've had multiple people thought that it was this week's that was canceled. I was like, no, I'm sure I said it was next week's. So next week's Unfuckit discussion will not happen because I will be out of town and busy and losing my shit all the time. And maybe I'll even see you, Clive. So I'll talk to everyone Sunday night. Say goodbye to Twitchland. Bye, guys.
all Sept sign up troops and they're coming.
Let's go.